I think the whole thought of if you're doing what you love to do, that should be enough.
Yes, that's it. That's it. It's like
Yeah.
the joy of doing the thing, there shouldn't be an added component of money. And so people end up doing jobs that they don't like and then hobbies, quotation marks.
Right. Hobbies, that is what they really love
But
to
it's
do.
really what they love to do, but
Yeah.
that's not where they generate money. Like maybe someone along the way said to them, like, well, what are you going to do for your actual job? Well, hello, Katie.
Hello, Sophie.
How are you today?
Oh, well, I've already gotten into a week where there are things that are developing and things that are breaking, like, like happens, kitchen disposal after 15 years. So making huge noises. So anybody who's a homeowner or even is taking care of a space knows that there's always something, there. And the expectation that everything is going to stay balanced is one that I've been working with for many years. Like I get things like, and then something happens. So, yes. So
sounds like nature. That sounds like life.
It does sound like life, doesn't it?
Well, it's beautiful that you start us there because I had an interesting weekend, fabulous weekend, where I was invited to a birthday party with a dear, dear friend of mine who was turning 30. We realized that her birthday is not the same day, but the same year of my own daughter, which was interesting because I've never looked at our relationship as that dynamic.
Right.
Certainly enough years that I could be her mother. And the birthday had a gathering of a good amount of similar age, 30 to 35 maybe. And then there was this child that was brought in that was probably 2 years old. And the experience I had, so I want to tell you about the birthday a little bit, which was that all these young people, there were some women, some men, there was such a beautiful integrated of impact and wealth. Like in my generation, I saw a little bit of a separation. Those who do something meaningful either don't make a lot of money. Those who make a lot of money don't care if it's not that meaningful. Like I've seen, I don't know what your experience, I mean, I certainly know people that have done beautiful wealth, still being an impact. But I would say as a general feel, the people I work with often find themselves making a lot of money, not loving what they do, or really loving what they do and really struggling to make ends meet. So first of all, let's run this by you. Like, what's your sense of that?
Well, my experience is that that's part of the mythology around generating money. That we still have an idea that money is basically bad. That if you make a lot of money, it means that you're not as compassionate or a person who cares about the community well-being. And that if you do, like if you're an artist, for example, you're not supposed to focus on money. But there's this whole thing, well, how are you going to make a living if you're an artist, but you can't really have a responsible sense of, well, my art is of value. People will pay for my art just like they would pay for any other kind of, wealth or beauty or, function that they want in their lives. But there's still, I think, a lot of belief that money is bad, basically. I think that's what's at the bottom of it, is that, if you focus on money, there's something that's fundamentally wrong with you. And if you have a lot of money, it may mean that you're a little more shallow or but those who don't care about money often are those who have money. but
yes.
Having been a single parent and a grad and a student in college, at the same time, with a 1-year-old, I can definitely tell you that, money is very important just to, create safety and, how to care for yourself. I think it's a really, really big issue, internationally, but especially, like earning a living. Why do we need to earn a living? There's that whole sense of if you're not earning a living, there's something wrong with you, rather than looking at the circumstances and the context and how you grew up and what's going on in the population where you grew up. There's just so much inequality that is built into that.
Where do you think, I love this, I love the way you frankly are saying, a lot of people believe that money is bad, and then if you have it, it means you're not generous or not caring, or where do you think, I know being from France, which is it's a Catholic country, a lot of focus on the Catholic kind of approach to it all. And if you have money, you're not a spiritual person, or you don't get to
Right.
go to heaven, some of those things. Where do you
Yes.
think, where do you think it came from that money is bad from your perspective?
Oh, well, that's such a great question. Well, I was just thinking about Jesus throwing out the money lenders, I think, if you're talking about our, religious, particularly a lot of Western civilization has a Catholic or a Protestant background. And if we just look at those, going way back in England, the fights around Elizabeth I, the Protestants and the Catholics, almost all of the biggest wars have been religious wars.
Mm-hmm.
I think we can just frankly say, all of that is made up.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Anyways,
the whole hierarchy, and you're going to go to hell, and original sin, and all of that is made up. And my sense is that it's made up in order to control people.
Mm-hmm.
That there's a belief that people need to be controlled because otherwise they're going to run amok completely. And I think that dichotomy, and people, if they're not educated to take responsibility, that's for me the modern replacement for religion is responsibility. But most people don't grow up with learning how that money is a resource, that money is energy. And what we've been focusing on, Gay and I, over many years, is that money follows energy. And that if you're really focusing on developing and expressing your genius in the world, that the value of that in our society, value is expressed through money. So in other cultures, it may be expressed through time. For example, that instead of a lot of money, you have time to be together, to co-create, to take care of each other, to work on projects together. I'm just thinking of the Amish who all get together and they raise a barn. So it's not a money exchange, but it's a labor and time exchange. And so, but for us, we have, that money is the big exchange. And so if something is of value, people will often ask, well, what does it cost? Or that didn't really cost you anything, or, does it have value? Well, people didn't pay very much for it, so it must not have value. So it's a very complex. There are entire books that have been written about money and the value of money. But one of the things I like to look at is, am I expressing what I really am wanting to do, and am I respecting myself? Am I valuing myself? Because then I think that's another aspect that gets reflected to us from the outside, is if I respect myself, other people are going to tend to value me. But if I don't, they're going to pick that up.
Interesting. So you're equating the money exchange as, if I see your value, then I pay for your service, let's say, and so if someone is struggling with receiving, or like even don't see their own value, like maybe they are in a situation where they're making all this money, but it doesn't really question their value. It's like their heart is not really as committed to it, it sounds.
Well, it sounds like, too, if we've worked with so many different people who get to midlife and they have a lot of money, but they've gotten it from doing something that's not in their zone of genius.
Yeah.
They've gotten it by particularly zone of excellence, when you do something really, really well. And people ask you to keep doing it because you do it so well. But it doesn't have that satisfaction of expressing your genius, of really sharing what's in you, what's your purpose to share in the world. Because that combination of doing what you love and that you also are willing to have valued, that's where it gets tricky for a lot of people, because there's this, it goes into the upper limit problem of like, well, who do you think you are charging that much for what you do? Or don't charge too much, because, then people won't think you're selfish or that you're snotty, or that, the whole it still has, I think, the whole thought of, if you're doing what you love to do, that should be enough.
Yes, that's it. That's it. It's like the joy of doing the thing. There shouldn't be an added component of money. And so people end up doing jobs that they don't like, and then hobbies, quotation marks.
Right. Hobbies, that is what they really love
But
to
it's
do.
really what they love to do, but that's not where they generate money. Like maybe someone along the way said to them, like, well, what are you going to do for your actual job? You know, when they were
Right.
talented for the guitar, or, you know, some sort of, you know, not as valued by society kind of, I guess, isn't doing something you love valued by society, maybe? Like it just doesn't have enough value intrinsically.
Well, just look around.
Yeah, that's,
You know,
yes.
like particularly, is what women do valued? No.
Yeah.
And how we know that is that the economy would stop dead if women stopped doing all of the things they're not paid for.
Yes.
We would have no society if women were not holding it up. So, you know, with all of the different things that we do all day long that support other people around us, including men, to do what they love to do and not have to worry about the everyday, the functioning, the maintaining of life.
Wow. So back to this weekend for a
Yes.
second, because I saw something that I thought was really beautiful talking today, you know, between generational flow and what's natural to you may be different to this group of 30-year-olds. And then the part that really struck me is this young child that was brought, you know, later in the evening, in the morning, and maybe two, like I said. And I was wearing these antenna. It was an alien rainbow party, don't ask. And so I was wearing these, like, you know, balls, silver balls on my head. And so she very kindly, she kind of signaled that she would like to have them or see them or look at them or whatever. But the second of course, I gave her the balls. And when she had them, she immediately turned around and gave them to this other person, which she didn't know either, not even her mother. And then the person, you know, my friend was saying that put it on, and then a couple of minutes, and then she asked for it again, and then she gave it to her mother. I mean, I saw this just natural, talk about exchange of energy. Then she finally put it on herself and kind of liked it for a minute or two, and then she turned it. I mean, it was just I was sitting there thinking, here's someone who's got it, who's got it. Like there was just this beautiful flow without any kind of needing to hold on to, or fear that she wasn't going to get it back, or fear of asking.
Yes.
I just saw all of it. I thought that was really
that is
beautiful.
so beautiful. It was reminding me of something that I might have mentioned before, but it's just so striking to me. Many, many years ago in the 70s, when there was a publication called the Whole Earth Catalog.
Okay.
Which was a genuine hippie publication, but really about expansion of consciousness. And the title of the article was "The Gift Must Always Move." And I still have the article and have shared it with many people. But the gist of it is that we don't really own anything, and that if I'm enjoying something, and I've had this happen many times where I have something and someone really admires it, and I've just taken it off and given it to them. And the whole idea that if you keep circulating, if you keep generosity circulating, that everybody gets to benefit. And then we also have the idea that what is really of value there is the connection and the sense of this is for you and now it's for you, and kind of the impermanence too of things, that things don't last and that they can be moved around, but even something that you really love is not going to last. And so that whole generosity, of, oh, this would look good on you and it would also look good on you, and moving things around keeps the circulation of, it's sort of our collective economy moving.
It's interesting because it has, like, the I'm pretty sure the apple tree and the pear tree and doesn't sit around, don't take my pears.
Right. No, I won't have any pears.
I won't have any pears left. I think there definitely is a mirror in nature that this little girl I thought was really manifesting and sharing. Do you think there is an evolution? So if we were to talk, like I grew up, I'm in my mid-50s. I grew up with a generation in Europe that had lived through the war.
Yes.
My parents, my mother was born in the early 40s, so very much that spirit of like, we don't have enough, what happens if we,
Yes.
I wonder if, are you seeing that in general, the evolution is that people are receiving more and letting themselves receive more, or do you still see almost that mentality carried without the war?
Oh, I think that mentality is still very much in place, and that younger generations, Z and X, and it's still in reaction to my generation. So my generation, because I was born in the late 40s,
Mm-hmm.
my parents grew up during the Depression.
Yeah.
And that put a stamp, particularly on my mother, but really both of them, that my mother never got over. So taking the family money, the $5 to the store and losing it, to buy the week's groceries.
Ooh.
And the imprint of that on her, froze her in this. Is there going to be enough? Is there ever going to be enough? And so she always bought things on super sale. And, even, when I would say they were, back in the day when you actually could live on one person's salary, which is no longer, there have been so many changes in the way that we structure. How do you make a living? And I actually think that we're at the time, what would really be of value is if we had a universal basic income and we had a universal basic health care.
Mm-hmm.
Because then people could be putting their time into what is it that I most want to contribute to the world? Because genius is not only what you love to do, but what also makes a contribution. And if everybody were doing that, we'd have all of these interlocking geniuses co-creating and solving problems without having that, am I going to have enough? I remember when Gay and I first got together, we literally were operating from the will we have enough? Our mantra, which was really an accumulation of our beliefs and what the beliefs that we had inherited about money and value. So we started with, we have enough money for our needs. And that's what happened. We had enough, barely, for our needs.
Mm-hmm.
But then we changed it to an active verb, which I so encourage people to do. We enjoy, we thrive. But for me, enjoy was so, because you're not supposed to enjoy money because it's basically bad. So to enjoy enough, to enjoy plenty of money for our wants and needs.
Once
so and once. Mm-hmm. I can want something, and it's okay to want something and to have that, because when you grow up with that sense of scarcity, which so many people do, how do you shift that? And then what comes up for me always too is, well, what about the other people? Mm-hmm. What about the others who don't have enough and who are struggling? For me, I've moved to, I want everybody to have a basic income, because we have, as a society, particularly here in the US, we have enough collectively that everybody could have a basic income. Yeah. Everybody could have universal care, health care. But I think what's on the other side of that is that there's the sense of, if you don't earn it, you don't deserve it. Somehow just by being human is not enough. You have to kind of make sure that you're doing something that everybody else would approve of in order to have enough money to live on, which I think is just a terrible thing for us to have made up.
But it is interesting, though, because imagine if we were a country that does give, and I love the idea conceptually, then the rest of the world, I mean, is that what not happens when people decide to go to another country where they would be given all these opportunities, when maybe, is there enough? Is there truly enough for the whole planet? Like, does your theory work if we were able to do it for truly everyone so that we can grow? It reminds me when you were talking of the Maslow pyramid, if you're at the very base of the it's very difficult to think about your zone of genius if you truly cannot feed your children tonight.
Exactly. Well, I believe it was Buckminster Fuller who said many years ago, we have enough money, there is enough wealth on the planet for everybody to be thriving. And the other thing that has not existed before, I think, in history is the dichotomy between the super wealthy and the rest of the world. The really super wealthy, have been, they've hoarding. Hoarding most of the resources that would then be available, and they'd never be able to spend all of that. But again, it's based on that. I think what it's also based on is that people are not equal. That and in the whole sense that not everybody has value. You need to demonstrate that you have value by earning a living, and then we might have more respect. But this whole one down that really operates, I think, a lot in society is a form of contempt. You're not as important as I am. You're not as valuable as I am, and so
you don't really deserve as much.
So we don't need to really consider the fact that we literally are all connected.
And it's interesting because if we're on the same line of thinking, those who have that much, they often have not worked. A lot of that generation has.
That's right. They didn't actually earn it. They inherited it. Many of them, yes.
So you were talking about the mantra earlier, which I love this idea. I don't know if everyone knows how to work with one. Can you teach us, tell us how you and Gay in this case, like how did you work with a mantra that apparently took you from not wealth to wealth? Like, I'm curious to what was the regularity of it?
And just to review for people, when Gay and I got together, we had, our actual money, I had $347 and a Mustang that leaked oil, and Gay had just had his American Express card repossessed. That was it. That was our wealth. That was our money wealth.
That was your wealth.
Our money wealth. I think we had all, I think I certainly felt, well, I have things to contribute, but I was so excited about living in a way that created unity and was creative. And the money mantra, what we started to do was to incorporate that into all of our money discussions.
Oh,
and paying the bills, and planning for a trip. I remember the first time we planned to go to Europe. I'd not ever been to Europe before. I hadn't traveled very much at all before I met Gay, but we planned to go to Europe when we basically had, we just had very little money, but we said we were going to go, and we intended to generate plenty of money so that we could go for the trip. And we did. So we kept, over the years, we just kept returning to, repeating. So one thing you can do is repeat this inside. You might just try on, I enjoy plenty of money for all my wants and needs. And say that, and then notice how your mind and your body responds. Because what's likely to come up are the limitations, the beliefs that you've learned.
Oh no, I don't really
need that. Or well, how can you plan for this trip when you haven't paid for the groceries? And the
monkey mind.
Yes, the monkey mind, and hearing that, and then noticing what happens, because my experience was always that I would stop breathing and stop moving. I would go into a little bit of a like a little bit of a cringe. Is there going to be enough that that also the basic misunderstanding about money? I can remember asking my mom, she say, I don't know if we have enough money. And I said, well, why don't you just write a check? That's what I thought, as a kid.
Why don't you go to the ATM? It's going to give you money.
Yeah, if you just go and you get some more money. And but there is a sense of, if you are if you consider yourself a producer, if you consider yourself a creator, then you're generating. And, my sense is too that generating and contributing is a flow of energy that is even more powerful than paying somebody with money. That it's the same, following your energy, and letting that go out into the world and letting it be okay for everybody to thrive.
Mm.
That would be that'd be a social revolution.
That's really beautiful. It's funny, I was working with a client last week who I would consider really high up in consciousness, and in many areas of his life, I see the language used is very expanded and very, very elevated, very beautiful. And then he got information that he made so much money last year that he has to pay all these taxes, and he hadn't exactly planned for that. And so I remember years ago someone saying to me, like, the joy of paying taxes is because you made so much money, you know. So I said that, and he paused, and he said, well, that's a really, so what he was playing with, which the sentence I think is contributing to this conversation, he said something along the lines of, should I lower my expenses or should I increase my revenue? And I thought that was a really cool, because there's such a thing as
Uh-huh.
maybe too much one way or too much the other. I just thought it was a good kind of landed place of like, do I generate more or do I reduce the wind, that I need to make my boat float?
I so when I hear that, what I think of is that you're in a particular room
Yes.
and
Mhm.
you're going, okay, given this room,
Yes.
it's not quite the right size. Should I make myself smaller or make the room bigger?
Yes.
But there's a whole other, if I move myself out of the room
Yes.
into the, and gave myself a larger context, for example, that people who are going to be magnetized to the energy that I'm expressing. And
Hmm.
that connection is going to create more collaborations and more ways of operating than I can think of right now.
Yes.
So making what we call a bigger corral, or a
Yes.
bigger meadow to play around in, rather than going, oh, I just have to, that's an enough move. So,
Yes.
and so a plenty move would be, how else can I generate,
Yeah.
the resources for this project? Or, I'm willing to have the resources and energy occur without me even knowing how that's happened.
Mm.
So I'm
That
willing
feels
to
like,
have magic occur.
yeah, I was going to say that sounds like magic. And as I'm seeing the book behind you, I also know that Gay's new book is coming out, and it certainly feels like a big leap in thinking. It
Yes.
feels like an expansion of the way, because reducing one, augmenting one, we're still in a certain reality that feels like the small aquarium, the small fishbowl.
Yeah. And I was thinking about when I was growing up, I would save up. But also in society, we didn't have credit cards back then.
Yeah.
So I mean, just think about that. We didn't have credit cards. So you could put something on layaway, like, for a holiday, for a birthday, or for a
What is
Christmas.
layaway? Like put it aside, like before,
Yes, you would, and
ahead.
you would pay toward it. They would
Yeah.
hold it for you, and you would pay a certain amount every month. And then when you paid for it, then you got it.
Yes.
So we had this whole thing called saving up, which,
Yes. Now it's put it on the credit card and figure out
yes,
how to pay it back.
yeah, yeah. So I think that we're still, though, very much, we have those kind of roots that haven't been pulled up yet,
Yeah.
that are based in the, be careful.
Hmm.
And also that money, people are going to cheat you, so I also think that a money mantra, way that you want money to operate works best if you are living in integrity. So
Yes.
yes, so you do what you say you're going to do. You're real with people. You know how to communicate. You can take responsibility for, oh, I made an agreement and I didn't, but like particularly with money. Oh, I made an agreement with you that I was going to pay you back for, and I haven't done that. Oh, and so you repair the breaks in integrity. And then those add to I just think the impact of what it is that you're wanting to create.
I just had this visual as you were talking of, like as you were, even your body looked for a second as like a crystal
Mm,
vase, almost like a long, cylindric shape. And as you were describing these commitments, it felt like leaks. It felt like there's, when you don't keep your commitment, there's like a hole in that beautiful container, and the water, as much as it wants to stay in that container, can't. There's just
yes.
falling off with all these. So I wonder if, especially because we're still at the very early 2024 at this moment, I wonder if there's also around the mantra, coming up with a mantra that maybe this one or one that fits for you as the listeners. But I wonder if there's also an opportunity to look at your crystal vase, if
Yes.
you may, and
Your
then
own energetic container.
yeah,
And that's a lot of what I do, and what I teach people to do is that living in integrity, living in wholeness allows you to generate and to contribute so that you're not always plugging leaks.
yeah. And when people think of the big leap, having read the book, and now this new one, I'm thinking that people tap into, I want to be in my zone of genius. That's like a thing. I
Yeah.
wonder if it could, you know where I'm going.
I do know. I think I
Well,
know.
please,
But go
please.
ahead, please.
Well, I was just thinking that this effort or this play to look back to your life and be like, where did I leak? Where did I make a commitment and didn't keep it? Where do I have a friend who I borrowed money from when I was, I don't know, early 20s, I want to say. And I reimbursed eventually, but there was definitely delays and telling
Mhm.
her that I could when I really couldn't, and not like saying it after the fact that I wasn't going to be able to reimburse when I said, as opposed to before.
Yes.
This conversation is making me want to reach out to her. Even she's going to smile that it was 30 years ago. So whatever. But
But
it's
it
a
doesn't
leak for me.
matter.
It
I
came
mean,
up for me as a leak.
exactly. So something, it could be from your childhood or even from, back before you, could be from parents but if there's what I call a wobble or
Yeah.
something comes up, then it's an opportunity to kind of reweave your wholeness so that you experience this sense of, oh, for me, the living in integrity allows me to be totally present right now
Yeah.
because I don't have anything else going on.
There's no
Like, oh my God, I
noise.
forgot to, and then I can fully engage here, which is where I think genius really flows. Like the 2 year old you were talking about, living in whole. So, of course, the impulse is always going to be innovative.
Mm-hmm.
And and it may be out of the established context, but it's always it gives a new opportunity to go, oh, we could just exchange. You're like, oh, I like your hat. Oh, well, here's my hat. And the sense of that we're all co-creating the living for all of us.
Mm.
And the integrity moves they're all doable. We have them in our 4 pillars of integrity. We have them in our integrity deck.
I was going to say, I think we should definitely talk about the integrity deck,
Yeah,
and we
we
should have
can.
it
Yeah. So
in the
the
show
integrity
notes.
deck are collages and questions and statements that are about each of these areas of integrity. And they allow you to make moves that bring you into this sense of, oh, I'm here. I belong here.
Mhm.
I can relax here. I'm safe here. And I can expand into sharing with others because I have that basic level of I'm with myself. I feel my feelings. I express my feelings to others. I keep my agreements. When there's a wobble, I communicate about it until it gets straightened out. And so what you get, I believe, is flow. You get this wonderful experience of creative flow that then becomes, when you interact with others, becomes a collaboration and a new invention that enriches everybody. Everybody gets enriched rather than just one person.
And also the container itself, talk about energy. How could you, like, imagine a fire hydrant, the way the firefighters extinguish fires. You couldn't do it if that hose had all these holes. Like the water would
Right. And
just,
also, if you only had one person holding it.
Yes.
So big
It is.
fires,
Mm-hmm.
take the collaboration of people working together.
Old.
And my sense is that big projects, like saving the world, take
That
more
little
than
thing.
one person to accomplish that. And so, just coming back to the original problem is that there's something wrong with you,
Yeah.
and you need to work out of that, but you never really do, because original sin, it means that
You're never out of that. You're never
you're
free.
never out of that. And so my sense is that I think some people have called it original blessing.
Oh,
So to
beautiful.
have that sense, like, it's no problem when you look at a 2-year-old, there's no problem having, of course, original blessing. This evolving human being who hasn't quite become everything that she's going to become yet. But we're all like that. We're all becoming and evolving. And to have that sense of you're essentially totally lovable. I
Yeah.
think that's the original problem. And to experience, I'm lovable. Oh, big-headed you. Oh, you're lovable. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
lovable.
And so are
And
you.
and so are you. Exactly.
I wonder if in closing you would be willing to pull up a card from the deck since it's sitting right
Ooh,
there. And
ooh.
maybe before you do, I would love for us to have an intention almost as a cultural shift almost or intention. I wonder if you can kind of we can all hold with you, but just pull up a card that maybe provides some shift
Mm.
for
The
society.
reason how I will sometimes, I just pull a card because it will give me my next step.
Yeah, just a good next move. I like
Yeah,
that.
and it's like one choice, and each one of those choices moves us. Okay,
All
here we
right, what do you get?
go.
A
Ooh,
child.
this one is a beauty. I'm just going to hold it up
Look at the
because,
child. It's a young
yes, it's a
child.
young child, looking through the opening here, and it says, I welcome emotions and sensations as they move through me.
Hmm.
And the question is, in what ways can I notice what I'm actually feeling and experiencing in the moment? And so for me, when I welcome emotions and sensations as they move through me, emotions are really another kind of currency.
It's energy. It's
And it's
literally energy
energy.
and it's motion, energy
Yes.
in motion.
Yes. And so
Beautiful.
the equivalent, if I'm letting feelings and emotions move through me and I'm sharing them with you, we're increasing the energy, and we're increasing the currency that's going on between us, literally.
I love that. Ask the question one more time. The
Yes.
candid question.
In what ways can I notice what I'm actually feeling and experiencing in the moment?
Well, I'm going to invite people to, as they're listening, to really answer this question. I would like to answer it right now with you, if that's
Please, please.
available, because in this very moment, I have this, but like I can sense that something really big is coming into my life. I've had a couple
Yeah.
conversations this weekend, and so that's not what's present. But what's present is just this like bubbling, slightly nervous, but
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
kind that
Uh-huh.
gets, it's like it's more. It's not nervous.
I
It's.
love what you're doing with your hands.
I
So
know it's like
often the words
activated.
won't reach it, but what I call bodifying does that.
Yes.
So it sounds like, fear, excitement, fear, excitement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's my breathing is not shallow. Like I don't feel in fear
No.
about it. It's more like a ooh, like there's just like this little bubbly thing with a little twinge of like, oh, like I feel like something in my past sometimes comes to, but if I take my head out of is something going to happen to me if I really go play big,
Yes. And
So
I
in
think
this
that
moment,
that's so beautiful, because when we're moving into the unknown, especially a positive unknown, a potential positive unknown can bring up even more anxiety
yeah,
than the familiar limitations. And so I love the way that you're navigating that and feeling right on the edge of expansion. Woo, just,
yeah.
so, that little pulsation, I think really it comes with when we're making a big leap.
I know we just said that we were at the end, but you just said something really profound that I would love to expand on a little more. When you said that even something positive, like good news, can be as, if not more, anxiety provoking. Can you say more about that? Because I think that's a pretty novel
I
concept.
Well, I think it's part of my understanding of the upper limit problem. So, part of the upper limit problem is to keep people manageable.
Hmm.
Like in society, if everybody does exactly what they want to do, how are we going to, build the things we need to build and,
Yep.
take care of stuff and all of that? So the possibility of expanding beyond your upper limit, you're going to run into not only your own beliefs, but the collective beliefs
Mm.
of who, like, who do you think you are?
Mm.
And everybody else is happy with this. What's the matter with you?
Yeah.
And we just don't do that here. You don't get more, you're not more important than the other people. So there all of it, I mean, there can be lots and lots of beliefs. And what I recommend for people is that if you identify one of those beliefs, shift it on the spot. Like, what would be the positive expression of that thing that you're scared of?
So so the simple question of who do you think you are, I may reframe that and say, I'm a gorgeous human being that deserves everything. And so are you, because I do have a thing a little bit of like, well, why me? Am I more gifted? Am I more blah, blah? So the fact that so in this moment when I say, that I'm a beautiful, generous, kind contributor. And
And then what happens? What do you experience after you
I
say
did
that?
have a moment of like, well, what about the others? That's when I
Okay.
said, and
Yeah.
so are you, because that helps me. And so are you, all the yous. So that was a reframe for me
Yes.
right there. And I could feel the fluttering is a little softer, gentler.
Yes. Yes. Because we're dealing with competition, comparison,
Hmm. Hmm.
which we don't talk about very much, but it's really always there.
Yeah.
Especially if you're achieving a lot
Yeah.
and you're creating a lot, or you may be generating wealth, then not everybody's going to like that.
Hmm.
That's the other part.
That's beautiful. Tell us the mantra one more time, just so we finish the show with it. Not this one, though, the money one that you've
Oh, the
been.
money one.
Yeah.
Yes, for sure. We enjoy plenty of money for all our wants and needs.
Mm, I'm going to be using it. I like it.
I just
I like
welcome you all to use that. We use that for many, many years, and now we have it. Maybe in a future one, I'll show you. I'll tell you our more evolved one now, because we've been at this for 45 years. But I think this is a great
It's
one
a
to
good
start
base.
with.
It's a good start.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you again for this beautiful conversation, Katie. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, and thanks to the 2-year-old also.
Yes, thank you.